decades through camps and wars towards the slaughterhouse. In anarchy, there is another way. With anarchy, from the rubble comes new life, hope reinstated.
V For Vendetta, I understand you say doesn't represent your values. Isn't it promoting your cause in some ways, even if it's not exactly how you wanted to present anarchy?
Well, it's not presenting anarchy at all. I mean, the movie doesn't talk about anarchy. However, we think there is an opportunity for people to see this film and recognize the promise and possibility of revolting against illegitimate authority and creating freedom, and hopefully people will go beyond a film that doesn't really provide answers to realize that ultimately all illegitimate authority has to be resisted, not just when it wears a big obvious label of fascism, but even within societies which really masquerade fascism behind the trappings of democracy.
Since mankind's dawn, a handful of oppressors have accepted the responsibility over our lives that we should have accepted ourselves. By doing so, they took our power. By doing nothing, we gave it away. We've had a string of embezzlers, liars, and lunatics making a string of catastrophic decisions. This is the plain fact. But who elected them?
Societies like this one, where we're told that we have choices and we're given the absurdity of a vote between two billionaire or millionaire candidates, both of whom represent the ruling class, both of whom support war. A society where our choices are limited to Coke or Pepsi, but not fundamentally defining the way that our relationship with work and other people. We really see tax day as a form of redistribution to the rich. It's sort of Robin Hood in reverse day. Steal from the poor to give to the rich, and then give their tax breaks to the wealthy and subsidies to the corporations.
War is peace.
It was you.
We don't need
You
wars.
who appointed these people. You who gave them
War is peace.
to make your decisions for you.
The war shall continue. Thank you for your money.
We are led to the idea that this is a free society, which is the biggest absurdity of all. Our economy is every bit as much a command economy as a Marxist socialist economy. It's just we're being commanded to compete rather than commanded to cooperate.
Who would prevent violence if there's no one?
Almost all violence in society happens because people's fundamental needs are met. Our emotional needs, our material needs. Violence happens when people fundamentally are striking out because they don't have what they need, or because they've been compelled into an addiction to think that they shouldn't be satisfied with what they have. At the root of an anarchist society is the idea that everyone's needs should be met, that we aren't competing for resources because we've thrown away the idea of private property and have instead replaced it with a society where our baseline for resources is the idea that they should go to those who need them.
They're sort of a bunch of left anarchists who, to make a long story short, feel that the movie V For Vendetta wasn't anarchist enough. And they also denounced Time Warner and DC Comics.
We're not saying Time Warner, you should do this differently. Time Warner is doing exactly what Time Warner will inevitably do.
We, on the other hand, are anarcho-capitalists and feel that basically they should thank their lucky stars. There are companies like Time Warner and DC Comics distributing material that entertains them and maybe even enlightens the world a little. And that DC Comics, Time Warner, and DC Comics. DC's not really evil, nor Time Warner. DC, Time Warner. Thank you, DC Comics. There may be a comic book professional or two in our group. And I'm in the phone book.
What we are trying to do is point out to them that anti-authoritarianism isn't just a Hollywood movie, isn't just something to use against cartoonish fascist states. We think that as anarchists, it was our responsibility and opportunity to inform people of the options for freedom and liberty offered in a society where people are self-managed and where resources are shared voluntarily, rather than a society where our quote-unquote freedom is being free to compete with each other constantly and be ruled by a state that ultimately exists to serve the interests of people like Time Warner.
Government not capitalism is the problem, maybe they'd be spending today protesting the IRS instead of DC Comics.
We are dumbass. Did you notice the button?
They say anarchy's dead, but see, reports of my death were exaggerated.
We're dumb.
Equality and freedom are not luxuries to lightly cast aside.
I'm thinking
Tonight, you must choose what comes next. Lives of our own or return to change. Choose carefully. I bid you adieu.
Have, for tens of thousands of years, lived a sustainable lifestyle. It's the corruptive influences of capitalism, the state, and really a society that enforces authority and domination that's twisted all that.